looking back, looking forward, looking down, looking up. Looking around. Come, join a journey of exploration to the distant past, to the frontiers of tomorrow, from the infinitely small to the infinitely large. The mysterious, the mundane. Come, let us travel to the horizons of knowledge. This program has been made possible thanks to a generous grant from the Swiss Agency for Development and Cooperation, the Vodafone Egypt Foundation, the OPEC Fund for International Development, and the Carnegie Corporation of New York. Dinosaurs. We all wonder about them. We all dream of them. And sometimes we try to imagine what it would be like to have lived with them, or what it would be like if they were to be alive today. Great books have been written about that. Great films have been made about that. Most notably, the trilogy on Jurassic Park. Remember? But when did the dinosaurs actually exist? Where did they come from? How did they become extinct? What role did they play in the great story of life and evolution? That is our story today, the story of life on Earth. Our story starts with the formation of the Earth from the primeval dust 4.5 billion years ago. The Earth starts collapsing and forming. The Moon is probably formed by a major collision that displaces a chunk of the Earth and whose pieces become captured by the Earth's gravitational pull and gradually become our Moon. The Earth is a violent place. Soon it is covered by oceans and is subjected to huge and constant hurricanes, and the Moon, being closer, generates huge tides. It is an inhospitable place. But within the oceans, it was more hospitable, and life would start in the sea. From this primeval, inhospitable world that started some 4,600 million years ago, we evolved into the wonderful planet that we know and love. That marvelous, nurturing planet full of life and wonder. How did that happen? It happened over a very long time. So what is the story of life on Earth? Well, to have a sense of perspective, let us assume that the 4.5 billion years of the Earth's life is equal to one 24-hour day. And we can see here a 24-hour clock that starts with 0, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. The first life forms appear in the oceans at about 4 a.m. Here, our clock shows 4:16:00. As we know from the theory of evolution, life evolved on Earth from a single ancestor that was probably a single-cell creature without even a nucleus in the cell. These were called prokaryotic cells. It probably evolved in the oceans and may have looked something like this. Gradually, very gradually, over 1.5 billion years later, some of these little creatures acquired a nucleus and became what we call eukaryotic cells. Cells with nuclei therefore appear at close to 2 p.m. at 13:52:00 on our one-day clock. Another billion years. And some of them developed into multicellular organisms. That is what we call algae. So algae appear after 7 p.m. on our 24-hour clock. As you can see, 19:12:00. Simple multicelled animals began about 400 million years later, and then things really started humming. Therefore, marine animal life forms appear a little after 9 p.m. or 21:20:00 on our one-day 24-hour clock. Within a few tens of millions of years, we got the arthropods, ancestors of insects, arachnids, and crustaceans. Shortly thereafter, just before 10 p.m., by 21:52:00, we get complex animals, the precursors of fish and amphibians. And around that time, we get a fascinating phenomenon. It is now 21:45:00 on our one-day clock, corresponding to around 530 million years ago, and we are at what we call the Cambrian period. And we suddenly get the Cambrian explosion. It is a relatively very rapid appearance of a period of many million years of most major groups of complex animals as found in the fossil record. Before about 580 million years ago, most organisms were simple cell creatures occasionally organized into colonies. Over the following 70 or 80 million years, the rate of evolution accelerated by an order of magnitude, as defined the extinction and origination rate of new species. And life appeared to become about as diverse as life today. We do not know quite why, but most of these creatures died out. They disappeared, only their fossils remained.
We have a fossil record of complex forms that goes back about 545 million years, something like that. But actually, the oldest fossils known are these bacteria that are 3.5 billion years old. So that's a whole gamut of time that we work with.
Some survived. Insects are direct descendants of the arthropods with their exterior armor or exoskeleton.
For millions of years, species can remain recognizably the same.
And so, after a while, the Cambrian explosion is over, and the large number of the creatures that flourished have become extinct. But life goes on, and the surviving creatures multiply and evolve. It was not to be the last mass extinction on Earth. In fact, the so-called Permian-Triassic extinction event, the Great Dying as it's sometimes referred to, was an extinction event that occurred about 250 million years ago. On that occasion, up to 96% of all marine species and 70% of terrestrial vertebrate species became extinct. And it is the only known mass extinction of insects. 57% of all families and 83% of all genera were killed. Because so much biodiversity was lost, the recovery of life on Earth took somewhat longer than after other extinction events. But let's get back to the Cambrian explosion. The Cambrian explosion, in creating so much biodiversity, has generated extensive scientific debate. The explosion probably represents a threshold being crossed. For example, a threshold in genetic complexity that suddenly allowed a vast range of morphological forms to be employed to rapidly expand, to fill in ecological niches in the water habitats. Fish appeared, first as cartilaginous fish like sharks and rays, and they have continued pretty much as they were for all that time. And the first vertebrate fish appear. It is called the coelacanth, and it looks like this. Now take a good look. I shall be coming back to this creature in a while. Indeed, not much later, at about 10 p.m., around 22:00:00 on our 24-hour clock, there is another similar one-time explosion, that of the land plants. The plants on land help change the atmosphere and make it